good, Chaotic Nation? It's your boy Chaos here, coach of your Detroit Red Wingulls, this season's RGBL winner champion. I'm just kidding. That we don't know that yet, but we hope so that we can make it that far. That's the hope of every coach of this league. So we just got to remember that as we go through it. We are here for our week 1 team builder and week 1 match versus the Kansas City Torrent and Coach Clockwork. I fought Clock in the previous season, and he was a tough fight. I think this is even warranted for a tough fight too, because this team is crazy stacked. I want to let you guys know right now, if you are interested in like this being a separate video, the team builder and the battle, please let me know. I'm interested in doing that. I'll have to figure out the schedule and how that would work with the uploads and those kinds of things. But if it's something you want to see, let me know. I'm always trying to figure out what to do. I kind of like this format because it allows you to at least see a bit of the team builder before you jump to the battle, before you do that. So if you're interested in seeing just one or the other, let me know. If you want different videos, let me know. We can definitely do that. But let's talk about Clock's team and what the Torrent has got for us this season. This team is rocking Gouging Fire and Namorous Incarnate form, Ninetales Cantonian form, Hisui and Lilligant, Swampburnt, Thunderous Incarnate, Iron Crown, and Quillfish Hisui and Kamala. The speed tiers are shown here on the screen. As you can see, we outspeed his whole team with Darkrai and Hawlucha. Zoroark's really fast in the team, but he does have overall a pretty fast style team. 3 Mons over 100 is not 4 Mons over 100 rather is nothing to scoff at. I mean, we have that too, so we definitely see that. But his middle ground Pokemon are still even fast, and even his bulky Pokemon have a good bit of speed on them at 65 and 60. Those are pretty good speed tiers for slow Pokemon. So this is definitely an offensive team, definitely a fast-paced team, and definitely a Sun team, as you see that paired with a Ninetales and a Chlorophyll Sweeper and Lilligant, as well as Gouging Fire that really takes advantage of the Sun, not only with its typing, but also with photosynthesis and the like. So we have a pretty interesting team. That speed is definitely helped with Chlorophyll, so Sun is definitely going to be a problem that we have to think about and consider this week as we are building the team. But I want to at least talk about what I'm going to be bringing and how it's going to be affecting the team and what we're going to be doing here for that. It's likely to note that at least one of the Terra captains is coming this week. 100% that's Ninetales coming this week. And it's probably going to be Terra Grass. It has access to Terra Grass and Terra Fire, depending on how it wants to run. Either way, I'm prepared for it, but I definitely see Terra Grass being a likely option as another way to deal with something like Suicune that I might be bringing, or a way to stop Iron Treads from clicking Earthquake or something like that. Grass has more usefulness into my team than Fire does, so I could definitely see the switch there. Hisui and Quillfish is another Terra captain and has Poison, Water, and Fairy. If it comes, I could see it being a nice Fairy counter to some of my other Pokemon on the team. Maybe wanting to catch a few things off guard with the Fairy typing, which could be a great answer for Darkrai. Who knows? I don't see this thing coming, but it could, and I'll talk about that more later. And his final Terra captain is Kamala, which is normal, ground, ghost, and fairy. If this comes, it's probably going to be Terra Ghost because it'll be a spin blocker. It's also a rapid spinner of its own, which we'll talk about that later on. So what is my opponent going to bring? Well, Gouging Fire is kind of a no-brainer. You pick it first. It is your highest tier Pokemon. I talked about that. You kind of want to bring that in your week because it's just a great counter for your team. Sun is really good and oppressive into my team. It kind of stops some of my more fragile Pokemon and definitely my Pokemon that are weak to fire or grass do not like it and do not appreciate it, and that's pretty good into my team considering neutral coverage of those two typings hits at least everybody on the team for some good chunks of damage. So Sun Oppression is definitely coming. Gouging Fire is a really dominant offensive user of Sun, especially Photosynthesis boost. It could be booster energy of itself, so we don't have to worry about that, but I think if it's common and if it wants to try to take a Photosynthesis boost, it is going to be calced for speed. That speed gives it the edge on Darkrai, and I think that's what they're going to be trying to play for. So we have to be wary of that when we're facing it. Hopefully that's not a counter if we are bringing Darkrai, which we'll talk about later if we are or not. but I want to go through their team first. For items, I definitely see Life Orb, Choice Band. That's a good option for them if they think the sun is an issue. Maybe Photosynthesis with booster energy. There is a potential that they have to play the game at some point without Ninetales, so booster energy could just be there as a mitigation to help with that. Heavy duty boots is another option. I don't see that because you probably want to advance on the likely offensive stats of this Pokemon rather than worry about defensive stats, and you're not going to try to switch it in too many times. You kind of want it to clean when it comes in, so I don't really see heavy duty boots. It could be an option because it is fire type and weak to it. Who knows? But I don't see it as being an option. Some notable things on this thing: it does have Burning Bulwark, which is a nice defensive move. It has Dragon Dance to sweep, which is great. But the important part of the Gouging Fire counter to my team is we have to make sure we get some chip on this Pokemon. Boots is a little bit of a problem because I want to run Rocks this week. So I want to use Rocks chip. If that puts it at 75, which means I can pick up a kill with some of my revenge killers. So if I can get any chip into this Pokemon, it's great. If it has Flare Bits, that's awesome too, because that's going to make it hurt even more. If it's Life Orb, I appreciate that because the chip damage is massive on Gouging Fire. The more we can do to it, the easier it is to get something into revenge kill it, and that is a big key for dealing with Gouging Fire this week. We have some options to try to shut it down just up front, but we're going to need it in the back too with just revenge. That is obvious for this team, especially with 91 speed. A lot of my team can just come in and win against it just by outspeeding, so we are prepared for that. As I said, Gouging Fire is coming. That means Ninetales has to come. At least you want it for a Drought Sunsetter at some point in time. It may not be the thing that actually procs Photosynthesis, as I said, boosted energy earlier, but that is really good for my team. It does kind of shut down the likes of Suicune, which wants to take on Gouging Fire. So it could be an option that is brought. Sun Oppression is great too into a lot of my team as well. I have a lot of fragile mons on the upper parts of my team, so it could pick off a few things definitely in and of itself. Probably max speed, max attack, built Jolly, or maybe Modest if they want to, but it's mostly probably going to be doing damage. Likely items for this thing is definitely a Heat Rock. Try to get the most turns of the sun, which I actually enjoy them having Heat Rock because it means Ninetales doesn't have heavy duty boots or another item that I have to worry about. Heat Rock is a nice item, and I have ways to deal with the sun, so I don't mind it being that because you're basically wasting an item slot in my opinion with this team this week. I did say heavy duty boots is a good option too. Ninetales is going to have to switch in a couple times to get sun up, so that opportunity to not take the chips damage and be in range is really good. You do get Drought even if you die to Rocks, I'm pretty sure. I don't know that for certain, but heavy duty boots could be a good option. Likely the moves that we have to worry about are Weather Ball and Solar Beam. Weather Ball is a great option just in case we are trying to do something with rain. Obviously Suicune is there and we have some other rain setters on our team as well, or we try to do sand. Ninetales really takes abuse of that with Weather Ball. It probably will also have Will-O-Wisp to try to burn our physical attackers, which is not my favorite thing in the world, but it can happen. Encore or subs could be an option for this thing as well. That's not great either. It could have agility if it wants to be a sweeper. As I said, I have some faster mons in it. I have 4 faster mons in it, so if it gets 1 agility, it is outspeeding my whole team, which could be an option for it, especially in the sun, to do some damage. But it also fire stabs are great too for it and can really make use of those. Next up is Hisui and Lilligant. Full send to the Sun team definitely this week. Chlorophyll is a great ability to have, especially for a team that needs some speed. They are Pokemon like Darkrai who are fast, and there are things that are faster than Darkrai in this league. 100 doesn't cut it nowadays, and having something that can boost its stat basically double, it's pretty good. This is a great Sun Sweeper. Has Solar Blade for high damage, as well as its 1 turn in the sun. Triple Axle is a coverage move. I don't really expect it. It could be there for Arbolivo, or if they expect me to do Terra Grass this week. I don't know. It has Victory Dance to set up, which can be really annoying. Likely its set is either Life Orb, Expert Belt. I feel like it just wants to do damage if it's coming in. Maybe some utility. Could have access to like Poison Jab and those kinds of things too, so we have to be really careful about this Pokemon and what its actual moveset is too. Defog is something I definitely think you slot on this team. You probably want Close Combat, you probably want Solar Blade, maybe another Grass type move for coverage, or Victory Dance, and then Defog. As I said, Rocks is something that's really big into this team, and I think it's really good. Defog, this is a great option for Defog as a sweeper and as a chlorophyll user. Being the fastest thing on the field guarantees that even if you go down, you get the rocks off, and that could be huge for the rest of the team later on. So I definitely expect Defog to be on this set and brought. It doesn't really need all 4 of its move slots. Like, its stabs do really well into my team anyway. So and you don't really want to leave it in on the other things that are there. So Defog is a great option. It gets rid of the rocks. They don't really care about having rocks up. I don't have a lot of things that are weak to it that they really care about. So that chip is probably not going to be happening. So Defog is probably the option for it. This could also be a Sash set if it wants to come in and try to live a hit. I have faced that in Mox. It could carry a Life Orb as well. That's another way for it to do damage. I forgot I already talked about that, but Sash is a variant I did face in matches. Again, it's a nice thing to switch in. Even if you don't have weather at that point in time, you can switch it in and get a kill to allow your weather to come back out or something like that. So Sash is a good option too, but if I have rocks up, it doesn't matter, which is great. Another likely bring this week is Iron Crown. That's a really great counter to Darkrai, honestly. I know it is a psychic type, but max invested into an Assault Vest or something like that really stops Darkrai in its tracks. So I think it's one of the best Darkrai counters this team has. Darkrai's coverage moves really let it deal with pretty much anything. So you need something specially to stop it. And I think this or the Quillfish are the 2 best options that they have to shut down Darkrai. At least one of them is going to come. Iron Crown makes more sense because it does hurt most of my other team too, especially with Psychic and Steel Stab. That hurts a good majority of my team, and a great bring for the team in general. I definitely expect it to be defensive though. It's probably going to lean more into the special side with things like Focus Blast and Volt Switch. Volt Switch for utility, Focus Blast for that Darkrai, because if you're going to bring Assault Vest, max special defense, you're going to bring Focus Blast to deal with that check, because Darkrai is a problem. That does one shot most likely. It is likely this is invested not in speed at all. As I said, it's probably a defensive Pokemon, so we're going to be seeing it sitting about base 98, which is not bad for the team, honestly, but it does allow some of my my faster Pokemon to definitely outspeed it and take it out. So I don't mind that non-investment. It doesn't really play too much in the case. The speed tier at 98 is kind of a weird one for my matchup, because it doesn't matter if he's maxed or not. If he wants to invest in speed, he's wasting it this week, which is great. I definitely see it with like a defensive item, so like Leftovers could be an option if it doesn't want to run Assault Vest. I think Assault Vest is a great option though for this team, and I likely would expect it to do that this week. It really just wants to pivot around my team, do some chip damage, and get in on the right time, which is to shut down whoever it's meant to shut down and kind of win there. I said good stabs into my team, so that's a problem for us to deal with, and we gotta work on it. Next up is Thundurus. 100% Thundurus is coming this week. It is a great Prankster Thunder Wave user. As I said, speed is kind of big in this match, and they want as much speed control as they can, and that is a great way to do it. Unfortunately for them, Darkrai's a dark type, and Prankster doesn't affect Darkrai, so this thing will have Focus Blast to try to deal with it. There's going to be a lot of fighting type coverage on this team to try to deal with Darkrai, or a lot of fairy type coverage to deal with Darkrai on this side. Focus Blast is definitely a thing. Luckily, it's Focus Miss, 70% accurate. Hopefully, one of those roll in our favor, and we can do some KOs, because, man, we're gonna need that a lot. It likes to shut down my team with Thunder Wave. That is great for any Pokemon, even a defensive Pokemon. It couldn't make us miss a turn, and losing a turn is very vital in Draft League matches. It definitely will have Focus Blast. As I said, Darkrai, Knuckle Sack is another option it could throw it into. Iron Treads is another thing it wants to worry about, and Arboliva. There's a lot of fighting weakness on this team, which is why I wanted to run Hisuian Zoroark this week. Didn't work out, but we'll see it maybe later in the season, hopefully. I don't know. It's likely this is somewhat offensive. This is probably the designated heavy-duty boots user of this team. It wants to switch in and just be annoying. That's what it wants to do. And so that's what it's probably going to be. It could be offensive though. I've seen Water Bolt Storm could be an option. It could be Sludge Bomb. It could be Focus Blast. There's probably not a Flying Stab option, so Hawlucha would be okay if it wasn't an electric type. But unfortunately, that is not the case, and we have to deal with it. So that is fun. I could also see it being Sash as a way to kind of come in for free. Again, that's not really bothering me if I have rocks up. You'll hear me mention rocks way too much in this video, and that's because it's just so good in this team. And there's another thing too, but I'll talk about that in a minute. And the last slot on this team, so we have Gouging Fire, Ninetales, Lilligant, Iron Crown, and Thunderous. You need probably another defensive unit. So the last slot really could go a couple of ways. It could be Swampert for Stealth Rocks of their own to try to chip our team. It could be Quillfish for the anti-fairy that we have with Clefable, as well as T-Spikes as a way to kind of counter my team. It could be Kamala, Ghost Terra, Rapid Spin with some pivoting options. It could be Scarfed and Amorous to straight up counter Darkrai speed stat. But out of those options, the one I faced was a defensive Swampert in Mox. I do expect that to be kind of the option. My team is really scary if you don't have defensive checks for it, and Swampert is a really good defensive check, saying I have to bring basically Arboliva to one-shot it, and spoilers, we didn't. So that's a really good option for their team. It fits the niche really well, and I really think it's the best option they have to deal with my team. So I think it's going to be Swampert, but this team is really good across the board. Any of these options could come. I mean, I could see this choice Scarfed and Amorous for the way to beat Hawlucha Unburden, for the way to beat Darkrai. Unburden Hawlucha if I speed calced incorrectly or something like that. It's just a good option for the team, gives them the speed they need to outspeed my team. But we have counters for everything, as we should. Good Draft League Builder, we should have counters for everything. I do expect it to be Swampert, so Gouging Fire, Ninetales, Hisuian Lilligant, Swampert, Thunderous, Iron Crown would be my the 6 I anticipate coming from my opponent. So now on to what I brought instead of what they are bringing. So we're going to lead off this week with our big boy, Darkrai. This is also the Darkrai. It's holding choice specs this week. Obviously, Bad Dreams is my ability. I'm max special attack, max speed. I'm not max speed. I'm max special attack. That's wrong. I'm max special attack, 28 in special defense, and 228 in speed. That is speed creeping an Amorous without... a max speed and Amorous without Scarf. I didn't feel like it was really a Darkrai matchup on Thunderous for reasons I explained. I don't want to have to invest in my speed stat with Darkrai. I want that modest nature that I'm running. So I'm going to let us lose the Thunderous encounter because that Focus Blast is coming. However, Focus Blast is a niche move, and it could not be bringing it because he knows that Darkrai just walls it and could anticipate Darkrai being faster. So on an off shot, Darkrai might just still win, and we'll have to see what that does. With moves, I'm bringing Dark Pulse, Ice Beam, Trick, and Nasty Plot. I did have Nasty on this set because +2 Darkrai sweeps. And I looked at that and I said, oh, you know what would be really great if I just had that boost from the beginning. That's why we're running choice specs. Darkrai can just win under the right conditions. It's just great mon, and it's fast. That's the really important. It outspeeds most of the team, and with some chip damage on threats like Gouging Fire, Ninetales, Quillfish, Iron Crown, even the defensive Iron Crown that I mentioned, we still can one-shot them with chip. Specs gives us the immediate damage that is needed, and I felt that was useful this week. I looked at some other sets with Life Orb, but Specs is good. I don't really need to be changing my options, and if I do need to change my options, I have Trick to trick that onto something else, which I could trick that onto ideally Gouging Fire, Lilligant, Quillfish, or Swampert to stop them. Could be a really good option there for Darkrai, and then I get a free Nasty Plot on those threats to let Darkrai sweep, which is great. Ice Beam is great for this set. There's a lot of ice weaknesses on this team, and it's great for this set, but and its coverage really for the Genies. I don't anticipate Darkrai dealing with either of the Genies on this team. I know it outspeeds it, and that's kind of what it's meant to do, but I have defensive counters for them. They're not really ideal matchups, because if an Amorous is coming, I'm pretty sure it's Scarf just so it could be Darkrai, because Darkrai's a big threat into their team, and that's probably what they're going to want. Again, the Thunderous is going to outspeed us if it's invested, and there's a Focus Blast. So Darkrai doesn't really want to fight those two, but he'll fight everything else pretty well. I went Modest on for Timid because I want the KOs. I really want the KOs in other places. I want the KOs on Gouging Fire. I want the KOs on Ninetales. I want the KO on Quillfish. I want the KO on Iron Crown. I want those KOs more than I want the speed. I have other options for the speed. I don't need to worry about it. I need to worry about damage. That is why we went Modest over Timid. I think it's just better. Honestly, Darkrai is not something I originally intended to bring on this team. At first glance of the team, I thought it had too many counters. I thought it was too frail for this fight, but in hindsight, Darkrai is super good, and it only really needs 2 moves to do it, which is phenomenal when you think about team building. So I was kind of won over to bring it, and I needed to do it. This is a straight up win con for the team in this match. It has the potential to just win a 1v6. It is crazy. It's a natural Thunderous Thunder Wave check, but we don't like the fighting coverage that is on that Pokemon, so we don't want to fight it, as I mentioned earlier. In my mocks, this Pokemon, I was able to actually win without Darkrai. I threw Darkrai away on an Iron Crown, and because it was built to deal with my Darkrai. But Darkrai we didn't need it. We still won the fight without Darkrai. Darkrai really didn't do anything besides mostly take out Iron Crown. So it might not live the whole fight. It might be an early sack, but it is a win con if it gets in the right situations. If it does last the whole fight, it might have just picked up a broom and started cleaning the house. That might have been what it did. Up next is Knacklestack, Henry the Knacklestack. I almost said the Pokemon, then the name. Henry the Knacklestack holding Eviolite, however you say it. Purifying Salt is the ability, so I can get status. This is one of my Terra captains this week. I have Terra Fairy because I want counters to things like those grass types that want to run Sun, and also into Gouging Fire because it stops the dragon moves that it could potentially use. It can also stop Dragon Tail switching out, which is something I just thought of now. I didn't mention that, but it is something that could happen if they want to run a more defensive set. I am max HP and max defense to deal with the Gouging Fire, and I have a little bit of attack investment because I don't need it anywhere else. It's a relaxed nature. That's enough said. And I have Salt Cure, Body Press, Iron Defense, and Recover. As I said, Iron Press is really good straight up when we drafted this Pokemon. It honestly is really good in this, and I really wanted to bring it. Recover for usefulness and healing, and then Salt Cure for the stab move that is really good for Chip. As I've mentioned Chip a lot, we need Chip. This is brought because we need answers for Gouging Fire, and this is one of my best options. We also naturally cover some of the special attackers on the other side due to our Eviolite, so we can focus on our defenses and we can take advantage of Iron Press on the set. It's really good. This is a standard set, and I know it's probably predictable, but it's very crucial that this team, we need to stop Gouging Fire this week. There is no stopping Sun on my side of the field. I have no way to get rid of that weather besides waiting for it to come out. So this is one of those options that could stall for that to be gone. We need to be able to answer that fire power, quite literally and with the pun. I don't need to really Terra this Pokemon. Ideally, it's not my Terra for this week, but Fairy is a really good option in case we get into a spot where it's important. It stops our weaknesses to grass fighting and ground moves, which is huge against this team, and I really like that for this option. That really shuts down Gouging Fire, and that's why I went Terra Fairy over my other Terras this week. This is also an answer to Thunder Wave on Thunderous with Purifying Salt because it can't hit us, and that's probably not a great switch in because of Focus Blast, but it could do that. With a couple of Iron Defenses in this Pokemon, we can go a long way in this fight. Even without Eviolite, which was knocked off in my mock battle, this thing stayed around with Iron Defense. Honestly, it needs a couple and it just sweeps. As I said, fighting is pretty solid into this team too as a move, and being that bulky, a special attacker really would have to come in and try to KO us. In fact, this is a minor win con of the team. It's something I want to keep in my back pocket, so you might see me preserve Knacklestack as much as possible. Even though I don't really think it needs to be my Terra this week, it most likely will be my Terra this week. It was my Terra in my mock battles. I feel like Fairy is just a good Terra this week, and this is what's going to be needed, so I expect to see that coming out. Up next is Klaus the Iron Tread holding the Occa Berry this week. I have Quark Drive, obviously, because I have to have Quark Drive. This is probably my most weird EV spread of the week. A 40 HP, 252 in attack, 8 in defense, 208 in speed. That outspeeds a good portion of his team. I think it's really meant to outspeed Ninetales, and honestly, this is my designated lead, knowing full well that Ninetales wants to come in and set up the Sun. We're built to deal with Ninetales. the thing is, I want that thing gone as soon as I physically can get rid of it. So having this thing be able to take a hit with the Yucca Berry, because that resists the fire move, which I think we take less than half at that point. I can set up either Stealth Rocks. I can just click Earthquake if I don't expect it to Terra. Even if it does Terra, I have Ice Spinner as a coverage for grass. Yucca Berry allows us to live any one move, any one fire type move from either Gouging Fire or Ninetales or anything else I want to throw it out. We can live anyone, and we get a return kill with EQ, or we can set up rocks, or we can use Ice Spinner. The options are there for this to deal directly with Ninetales, even though it doesn't seem like a great counter, which I think is why I like it so much. One of the most important things about Klaus is getting up rocks. As I've said many times, Rock's stupid in this match. Many mons of the other team have rock weaknesses, and not every single one of them can afford to run heavy duty boots this week. Rocks is important. I might just straight up click it and might let Klaus just take the hit for it. That's how important they are. Rocks are huge to this team, especially for Darkrai to clean later on. So we have a way to work. We have a way to remove items on those Pokemon that might have heavy duty boots. We have a knockoff user later. I'll talk about that down the line. But also Treads gives us a rapid spinner. This also is an answer for those faster things that want to try to set up in our face. We can outspeed them. A +1 rapid spin puts us in range to deal with that Gouging Fire if it decides to have the speed boost. This is an option for that too. We are spec to outspeed Ninetales and below the team, and if we can outspeed Scarf and Amorous at +1 too. So we have some great utility with this Pokemon, and it's a phenomenal rapid spinner because of its speed tier. We are tanky enough to endure fire hits from Gouging Fire or Ninetales once, and we can deal with special defensive Iron Crown with our speed and our straight up power. This is also our counter to Quillfish should it decide to come, because I don't really have anything else for it, and Ground is super effective on it. Although it could be a Terra Pokemon, this is still a good option into it, and regardless of what it wants to do. And it does have to be worried about tearing to some of its options, because I could have coverage moves to deal with it. It can also stop Thundurus if there's no Focus Miss on its set. As I said, 3 Pokemon that I brought all don't like Focus Blast. I think it's coming this week, for sure. I think it just has to come this week. But I have to prep for the idea that it doesn't. Realistically, I need this thing also in late game cleanup. Once big threats are gone, it's a win con that I have, and I'll try to keep it around as long as possible. Again, I don't know if it's more important than Darkrai in this situation. I don't know if Darkrai is more important than it, but it is a win con that I can use, and I did win my mocks with it, so it is something that I want to keep around as long as I possibly can. Up next is Magna the Crocodile holding Eviolite, whatever you want to call it. I have the Unaware ability this week. I'm Terra Water. This is my other Terra captain this week. Terra Water, as I said, no Snow Arboliva, so I brought 2 of my 3 Terra captains this week. I have 252 in HP, 212 in defense, and 44 in special attack. I'm a bold nature, take advantage of my defensive prowess, and I have Flamethrower, Slack Off, Terra Blast, and Roar. Croc is absolutely one of, if not the best defensive Pokemon we have on our team this week. As I said, we need to counter the Sun Core, and this thing is phenomenal at doing that. Sun is actually beneficial to Magna because it can secure things on like Lilligant with Flamethrower. Unfortunately, Unaware does not negate photosynthesis. I found that out by studying this week. So I do have Roar on the set to phase out Gouging Fire. And if we have Rocks up, it could just be that's what we do. We just roar everything out and let Crocodile sit here. It's a win con. It's not a great one. It's not one I want to use, but it's definitely a win con, and I will not hesitate to resort to it if I absolutely have to. Terra Water is great for this set because it's primarily here to deal with Gouging Fire. If Gouging Fire is a Dragon Dance set, we shut it down with Unaware, and we don't care. We have Terra Water also to hit it nicely, which is great. Terra Water, Terra Blast is pretty good because it gets stab boost on top of just the damage that it would normally do. Terra Water is great because it needs to click Outrage for a 2-kill. And we have Slack Off to deal with us healing, so we are good there to stall the Sun a bit. As I said, Sun is difficult. This is another option we have to stall the Sun so it doesn't work. Hopefully our lead option works well. We don't have to worry about the Sun at that point in time, hopefully. Ideally, we want Lilligant to be gone before we Terra, because if we have to Terra Water, we die to Solar Blade. We don't actually die, which is kind of crazy, but it hurts a lot, and I have to slack off stall it, so that's not great. It's helpful to be a fire type because it can help deal with Ninetales and it stops Solar Beam and Solar Blade, but also if Ninetales wants to tear a grass, we have a counter for that. We just click it. It would have to be Flash Fire Ninetales, and we'll know that immediately because it will either set up the sun or it won't, but Ninetales probably doesn't come if it doesn't set up the sun. Yeah, it is hard to KO Magna this week, and even with Solar Beam and Solar Blade, they do less than half unless they Terra, which allows Magna to pick up a kill. So you have to Terra, Solar Beam, the Ninetales to try to kill me, and I just kill you back, so it's fine. Phasing is great this week, as I said. Rocks, huge, barring there's no boots. Also a great way to shut down some of those offensive Pokemon if they want to set up. Crocodile doesn't care and then phases them out. It's great. It's a lovely set. They did not need to give it Roar. It is broken. It is honestly pretty broken. It gives us the Terra Blast, gives us coverage we need to hit Gouging Fire, especially because I'm using it as my Terra Captain. It likely wants to be my Terra Captain to deal with that situation, but it really depends on who is better in that situation at the end. This is my best option to punish the sun. While Magna really isn't here to deal with Gouging Fire, it really can, and it 1v1s a lot of the team members on the opponent's team, especially with the ability to Terra. So it's a great option this week, and I couldn't see myself not bringing it. Next up is Sylph the Clefable holding Leftovers. I am unaware on this as well for the same reasons. I'm Terra Rock because that's funny. Max HP and max special defense, a little bit of speed investment. That is specifically to outspeed Zero Speed Swampert. That is all that's there for. There's really not much else on this team that is favorable into this matchup this week, but Sylph fills that special defensive role that we need for special hard hitters. Ice is really great into the team, as I've said, so Ice is my coverage move. It's why Darkrai has it. It's why my next Pokemon will also have it. But mostly Clef wants to take hits and supports the team, which is stupid in this week because it wants to allow me to reset one of my Pokemon. With Baton Pass, that switch is easy to be made, and it will likely be a slow Baton Pass, meaning Clefable will get something back in to full health, most likely, for its own life, which isn't really that valuable in a lot of the cases here. Our bulk, this can be huge. That wish can be huge for Darkrai for another run at wall breaking or sweeping the team, or it gives Treads another late game, which could be really nice as a win con. It also can put one of our walls in back for free, and they can get back into doing what they do best, which is walling the team. This is a really good option for us to get back into a fight after a terrible situation. Grass Knot, as I said, speed and Grass Knot are both there for Swampert. Our bulk allows us to sit on Ninetales and the Genies to annoy them or force them out, which is great if they keep taking rocks damage. Ice Beam is a 2-kill on both of the Genies, and it's my primary answer to them as long as they both aren't packing Sludge Bomb, which is probably coming, but it is an option and they can't one-shot us with it anyway. With the set, I debated running Rain Dance and Baton Pass for the final move of the set, but I'm choosing Baton Pass for that pivoting option. As I said, it's really good to get back in for free and have something just come back in. And while removing that sun is great, I have ways to deal with threats in the sun, as we've already mentioned. So I really think it's better for us to do the pivoting. I don't want to play a Weather War with Ninetales this week. It's just not fun and nobody wins that fight. And once Ninetales is gone, there is no other really weather issue to think about. So that's kind of what we want to do. Rain also is a potential hazard for the team because it could set up Thunderous with Wild Bolt Storm or Thunder. And we don't want that. We don't want to deal with that. So I'm not going to set up Rain. It's not ideal. All of Clefable just means that we have to keep our walls in a position to deal with the threats that we have against our team. And when possible, use Wish and Baton Pass to keep things alive and healthy. And last but not least is Finral, our Mesprit. It is holding Leftovers this week. It has the Levitate ability. It is max HP and max special defense with a little bit of investment in special attack. I really struggled with this last set. I always struggle with the final set of the team build, but I really struggled with this last set because nothing really helped the team in quite the way I needed it to or wanted it to. Then I realized I was asking Clefable to do a lot. I'm asking it to fight the Genies. I'm asking it to fight Ninetales. I'm asking it to basically take on every special attacker on my opponent's team, which isn't good because a lot of them get coverage to deal with Clefable or a type that Clefable is weak to. So I needed something else, and Mesprit is the answer. So if these sets seem identical, that's why. This actually was on a first draft of the team, but I scrapped it for some more nuances that I had, but it came back onto the team because I needed it. Again, ice coverage is goated against this team. And since Mesprit doesn't have Wish on its set, I opted for Healing Wish. It does the same thing, but it gets a target full health at the expense of your own life, which is a great option to plug both Wish and Baton Pass into one single move. The other really cool thing about it is it doesn't proc on a Pokemon that is at full health. So if I have a full health Pokemon and I Healing Wish into it, just for pivoting, the Healing Wish goes off on the next Pokemon that has taken damage that switches in. So that is a great option for us later to have to deal with, and have our opponents have to deal with, which is phenomenal. As I said, the Healing Wish is phenomenal for momentum. Funeral mostly wants to take on the Scarf or Assault Vest and Amorous. It's not really much there to do much else. We can deal with Thunderous and the other special walls, but it's not really here to do much besides kind of be annoying and get rid of items. So it has an interesting role this week, and it's probably one of my early sacks if I have to do it. Stab Psyshock is great for Ninetales and Lilligant if I need to step in with something, or I need to stop Assault Vest users because it hits physically, which is great. And it's pretty free as long as there's not a Quillfish on the other side. It is free. Knockoff is great because it can stop a lot of my worries like Scarf and Amorous or Assault Vest. It can deal with Assault Vest on Iron Crown. It can deal with any other Assault Vest. It can deal with Heavy Duty Boots on a lot of Pokemon. And also shuts down Eviolite on Quillfish. I'll take that hit any day to get rid of Eviolite on the Quillfish. A knockoff puts a lot of our targets that need chip into range for Darkrai, so it is a really good option too as kind of a setup and precursor to getting Darkrai into the match and just sweeping. Well, that is the team. I hope that made sense. Let me know what you thought in the comments below, and enjoy the battle.